Welcome to the Understand tutorial on the EDI-Net project, the tools, particularly the dashboard, the forum, and the benchmark tool. We've just started. The first attendees are coming in. Graham, one of the panelists, is already attending. And to bridge the time a little bit, I will start with a few polls just to get a feeling on who's participating and how we can best contribute to your questions. Okay, so it will be English, I guess, because we can't cater for everybody. We're also expecting a few people from Nottinghamshire. I don't know whether they're already present. Doesn't appear to be so. So Germany, France, and Italy is represented. England is represented at least with Graham, the developer of one of the tools. And a few more participants from the UK are expected. I see, Moron, you have a question, just type it into the... okay, I understand. So you're also from the Nottinghamshire. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. I just remember the city. Okay, you're all energy managers. Have you all responded? No. At least someone is someone else. Okay. We keep the technicalities then at bay. But with the progressing of the tutorial, we might become a little bit more technical, particularly if you have questions. In general, the aim is to introduce you to all the tools in the beginning. Then Graham will take over and describe the dashboard in more detail. And then we will also show how the benchmark tool works and how the forum works. In general, you can also see at the bottom that there are two handouts. These are two of the materials we provide with the EDI-Net. Anybody has access to it. They're available via the website, via the forum. So you can follow the screen share, or you can follow at your own speed, at your own device, the presentation. You can download them if you want. They should be available at the bottom of the GoToMeeting tool. And obviously, most important, simply go to the website, edi -hash, whichever is correct, net.eu. There you can also then follow the links to most of what we will show. Obviously, some is backend where we need passwords, some is not open to the public, but the majority is accessible, and you can click at your pace and then hopefully be able to ask questions depending on what you see and what you want to learn more about. It's been a few minutes, so I propose we start. So the key features of EDI-Net. Basically, we want to provide tools which enable all participants in public authorities, whether it's municipalities, does not have to be municipalities, to improve energy efficiency. The key problems are that information on consumption is usually limited. If there is no metering, no automated metering, there's basically no information. The only one having the information is the one who pays the bill. But this is changing. Some cities have already implemented automated reading, and smart metering is being rolled out in the majority of European countries. Then, if you have data, who's the one who can change things? I mean, this is a two-sided question. First, for the energy manager, well, you can find this out through the matrix of your organization, who could do stuff if you get access to the money. But from the other side, for the other point of view, the public user who might receive some information about consumption, or who might be able to see wastage of energy, he generally has no access to this information. With the forum, this could be changed. For instance, if you engage, then you could motivate pupils at schools to communicate if a window was left open over the weekend. Obviously, this doesn't happen too often, but might. Who is in charge? Yeah, I already hinted at that. Basically, who makes the decisions? Sometimes money needs to be spent, so getting the wires crossed between those who are pure energy managers and those who are pure financial people. The benchmark tool helps with that. And yeah, getting feedback on what has been achieved. People stay motivated if they know what has been done and what impact was accomplished. No incentives, a general problem. This is very different from country to country, so there's no general term. But if, like in the UK, schools pay for their own consumption, their incentive is obvious to save on energy consumption. Hopefully, with at least parts of it staying within the school academy, to spend it on other things. But you can also use it in other forms, like in Germany, where energy savings, where the bill is being paid for by the city, like in Nuremberg, then some money is funneled back, not immediately saved, but funneled back to the city so they can spend it on further energy efficiency measures and sometimes other things. So EDI-Net provides information, knowledge, feedback, and incentives if the information is being shared. And we do this with a set of tools. The first is the dashboard, which basically communicates the data on consumption in a very simple form. It is smileys. Everybody knows smileys. Everybody uses them on the smartphone almost every day. And they communicate how the consumption has been today or over the past week in a summary and across a number of buildings. The benchmark tool is more for the staff within the municipality or the authority. There you can keep track of what you have been actually doing with the buildings. It also provides the information the dashboard collects, but in addition, you can see what kind of measures have been done and record what kind of measures have been done to each particular building and which buildings are the most important to be or the most likely to create a short-term payoff for investing into energy efficiency measures, or where a campaign might be necessary because the performance remains poor or is highly dependent on behavior. The knowledge is being shared in the forum. Depending on how much you engage, you can activate, we call them often champions, in particular buildings, and the champion knows his building very well, but he might be able to learn from other champions, other responsible, active participants in the community of how best to solve certain problems. There might be energy experts, there might not be energy experts. Getting access to the information in an environment he's aware of helps to improve the results and to engage other people in the process. This can work only within your community, but the forum also enables you to discuss this broadly across all participating cities. They all use the same tools, or they basically have a similar mindset to you. And with this, any particular cases, special cases like an old museum and so on can be discussed, and without having to directly go to a consulting company asking for high fees. And then there's a wide range of materials which can help to make people understand what this is all about and why energy efficiency is important, to learn how things work, to mobilize them to participate, and to coach them on energy efficiency. There are quizzes, there are obviously manuals for the tools. There's a lot of stuff. You can see it online later on. So the dashboard, it is about data visualization. I already mentioned this in too many words in the beginning. It is a traffic light system combined with smileys, and the smileys will tell you how good your consumption is. There is a color scheme from red to very green. The middle part basically shows you perform as you would be expected from the consumption last year ago, corrected by weather data. So if it is much colder today and you consume more, the smiley is smart enough to know that this is to be expected. But if you somehow manage to nevertheless cut the consumption because efficiency is better, be it through installations or be it through better behavior, then the smiley turns green. Obviously, if there's a sudden red peak, then something's very wrong, whether it is technically or because people leave the windows and doors open all the time. How does it look? It's a leak of tables. Basically, you can group certain number of buildings. Then for each you get a smiley. You can look into detail if you want, but it's definitely locked, like in typical energy management systems where it's a long list of smart meters or meters, and only one person is the master of it, because only one person is the one who understands the coding of the names and the addresses and the data behind it, where it is, what it compiles. This is made much more transparent in the EDI-Net dashboard. I will skip this one. Graham will explain it in more detail. This is basically explains how the dashboard is put together. Whoever played with Lego in the past will be able to use the dashboard. The benchmark tool provides information on the portfolio. It is more long-term. It is not, you don't look at it every day, unless you obviously the decision maker probably do if you have a large portfolio of buildings, but it is not something you would expect to see by the general public, but rather those working with the buildings and making decisions on where to spend 10,000 euro or pounds. And the rating of the efficiency is based on what kind of benchmarks are applicable in any given country. The actual consumption is also recorded, not only the calculated expected consumption, but also the actual consumption, using also smileys, maybe not as pretty as those on the dashboard, but nevertheless smileys. And you can record what measures you do. Again, visualization is the first key. You can see where stuff is going wrong. If you have 500 buildings, then it is easier to make decisions, particularly if you are in a small team. Hence, the data is also reduced. It is not on a daily, quarter hourly level, but more in the long term. How do things develop over time? Yeah, that's basically it. And at last, the measures, keep track on them. Normally, sometimes you do stuff and you forgot what it is, unless you look back in the archive and find the bill of what has been actually done. And this is often the case that in a large portfolio, this basic information is never recorded in a central place and most often never linked with the actual consumption. So the benchmark tool provides you with this chance. And the tool is also able to provide you with recommendations on what kind of measure would be applicable next. This is something which learns with time and is obviously dependent on your situation. but these tools are getting smarter and smarter, and the benchmark tool is the first step. Then there is the forum. The forum, I already described it. It can work in on various levels, whether it's totally located in your site and nobody else has access to it. Obviously, there's the global level. Everybody from using EDI-Net and even the public not registered with the forum have access to it. And there can be levels in between. You only have to request it. And then there are the materials. So I briefly show you where it is. We go on the EDI-Net website. On the EDI-Net website, under materials, you can download all the materials in one bunch if you want, or separately. Then there's the dashboard. Clicking on dashboard, quite easy. For 5 authorities, the league table is already public. For many more, it is being prepared in the background. Let's click on De Montfort for a second. Green impact, what we see is a league table of 7 buildings. This is a very good week, it seems. All are performing within their expected boundaries. Some are performing even better. When I click on it, I can see for the past week in more detail what has been happening. Then this is as if I'm not registered even. What can I see? I can help and support. There I see many topics introducing the individual materials and addressing certain issues you might have or to be expected along the line. As I said before, we do it in steps. So first people need to understand what EDI-Net is about or your efficiency measure is about. It needs to be set up, normally a small group of people, but then they need to be mobilized, get them active, and sometimes coached if, let's say, a certain kind of wastage is particularly often happening in one building. Certain materials should be pushed to them, and we provide an overview. And then there's the benchmark tool, which is not publicly available. So I'm logged in with a demo user here, where we can see here a selection of the buildings in Catalonia, but Catalonia has a total of over 1,600 buildings. So the list is much larger, obviously, and filtering is important. Without having to go into each meter, in one view, I can select certain kind of buildings based on consumption efficiency and so on. So that's so far. This is a basic introduction of what the key features of EDI-Net are, and I would hand over to Graham to describe the dashboard in more detail.
Thanks, Georg. Hi, everyone. My name's Graham Stewart. I work at Montfort University. We coordinate the project, and I specifically developed the EDI-Net dashboard. So the dashboard is, I guess it has 2 main features or functions. One is to spread information about energy performance in your buildings to a wider audience. And particularly a non-technical audience. So we hope it should help you to communicate with building users and people who are not in your organization who are not energy experts. And it also has the function of helping you to keep tabs on your immediate performance across your whole portfolio, which is particularly useful if you've got a large number of buildings, or if you want to look at the detail of the data. It helps you to focus on those buildings that are in need of attention and allows you to effectively ignore those buildings that have not changed since the last time you looked. So I'll just go over the main functionality then. Sort of in the public area of the dashboard, Georg's already shown that you can create a list of league tables. So this is De Montfort University. I've preloaded some of the De Montfort University. I haven't preloaded them, but buildings. So we can load full list, and This report is available publicly. It can be embedded into web pages, so you can put this as a summary into your organizational web page if you need to, or it can be presented on public screens, or it can just be used to show people what's going on. So the idea here is we present a very simple view of consumption in all the buildings. We summarize the performance overall. In this case, the Eric Wood building is performing well on electricity, water, and gas, and so the total overall performance brings it to the top. If we look down the list, the averages get worse and worse. The water seems to be a problem in Portland, so that can be highlighted. Electricity in the Hugh Aston building is a problem. New Wharf Halls Residences has problem with water and electricity. A very simple overview of the performance of the whole portfolio presented. So that's the public area of the site. And clicking through, let me choose one to click through on, I guess, Eric Wood. I think the Eric Wood building has actually had some fundamental changes of departments. So people are moving out, and that may be one of the reasons why we see good performance. And so you can see that actually the expected level of consumption is presented as the colored zones, and the actual consumption is presented as black line. And in this case, the black line is way low, way below what is normally expected by a significant margin. And I think in this case, it's because the building has been unoccupied, although we see that there is a massive increase in the base load at this point. But given that it's below the expected value overall, that's not being picked up. So, and in terms of gas, we see that performance is pretty good. Consumption's lower than in the normal or low range. So so let's look at a little bit more detail. So that's what the public can see. If we load the private view that you would get of your system and look at all the meters that are in the system, they take a little while to load. So once these are all loaded, we have a full list now of all the individual meters. So but we can filter them as we like. So if I filter to just see electricity, then I have a list of all the electricity meters. I can see which ones are performing best, which ones are performing worst. I can look at the daily performance, or I can look at the weekly performance. I can sort them in the other order, so I can pick up the worst ones. So these are the worst daily performing buildings. And as we saw, there was New Wharf electricity, that was a problem. So if I click through to that, I can see that New Wharf electricity has deteriorated in the last few days of the data. These actually only seem to have data up until February. I think perhaps these meters are now dead, so that might not be a good one to look at, but in principle, we can load the data, we can see what's going on, and we can see that the predicted zones, which show what consumption is expected, are pretty accurately reflecting the real consumption, but the real consumption does flip into different patterns occasionally. And so in this case, it's simply that consumption is at the high end, so it's not necessarily a obvious problem, but maybe something just to keep an eye on. Whereas in other buildings, we can maybe find, let's see, Hugh Aston electricity. In this case, consumption seems to have actually flipped. So let's see, I'll just increase the axes so we can see it all. So in this case, we're getting a red face. Clearly, we're seeing a high weekend consumption and high overnight consumption. Even though the consumption during the day seems to be within the normal range, the overnight consumption is very high. And we can see that even if we didn't see, even if we couldn't see the historical data, because the zones show that this is the expected level overnight. And if we look back into the history, we can see that indeed, as we go back, consumption was not long ago occurring at that level. And so something has changed, and we can probably identify exactly when it was that we start hitting the red zones. So the weekends here are starting to touch into the red zone, and then definitely a big shift there on the 19th of April, of March, in fact. And so our energy manager has neglected to act on this for a few months, and it looks like very recently it's got even worse. So we're really now having very high overnight consumption. So there's definitely a question, and rather than trawling through all the data sets that we have to get that information, all we had to do was look at which ones are the worst and click through the top 5 or 6 and understand what's going on at the moment. So this is the basic premise for the energy managers, that it can save you time, and you don't need to look at the buildings that are in the yellow zone, because they pretty much are performing as they are expected to, or as they have in the past, let's say. So, in this case, the building's yellow, no surprises, at the moment. So it's in its normal pattern. So nothing to do. Nothing to do in the immediate observation of the building. So I guess I could show a little bit, Georg. I don't know how far you want to go into the administration of this, how it actually operates, how you get your data in. Maybe we should wait to ask questions and respond in that way, or.
Yeah, maybe let's first, if you have any questions up to this point, yeah, go ahead. And if not, then we will show a bit of the technical detail as well, yes? So if you have any questions, simply post them in the questions box. You might have to open it, and we will address them.
If not, then I guess I can explain a little bit about how this system is configured. So so far we've been looking at the data tab, and we've been looking at the virtual meters. You can also look at the reports tab, which allows you to generate buildings. So all the buildings are listed here. This is your full list of buildings. And also league tables are listed here. Full list of league tables are listed. So here we can create a new league table. It looks like there is one here, an example. That's good. You can give it a name, and you can drag and drop buildings onto it. So this is how you would generate a league table, and you can preview what it would look like, and you can edit your individual buildings list. You can create new buildings. You can set the virtual meters, which we create, the full list of virtual meters. You can add your individual items onto the building, so that would create the list of on the right hand side. So you can add any number of those, although I think 3 or 4 is typical. Once you get more, then it becomes difficult when you have a narrow screen like a mobile device. So it's very straightforward to generate a building and add virtual meters onto it. The most complicated thing is to generate a virtual meter. Virtual meters have components, so each virtual meter is a combination of different devices. The individual devices themselves are listed in the devices tab, and devices come in from your data source. So when you start the system with a blank slate, you upload data files, and data are extracted from those files. That generates devices. Then you configure the devices, merge them into virtual meters, and then you can connect virtual meters to buildings, which are effectively the building blocks of the league table. So in this case, the data from this device is mostly zeros, and then a little bit of consumption, and then a load of zeros again. So unless it's possibly No, yeah, it's just a load of zeros. So obviously the data you put into the system is what is presented. So I can say a little bit more about.
Yes, I think push and pull is important.
So there's two ways that we operate. One is we expose an interface that allows you to automatically upload files to us or manually upload files. And we also have a facility that enables us to take data from any system that you have, which is open to us to grab data from it. So if you have a data provider that provides an API of some kind, or even a FTP server where we can grab data from, then we can we can support that and pull data from you with you having to do nothing. Otherwise, we offer an API into which data can be uploaded, and we provide all the documentation and support for how to do that. Often we find it's third party that ends up having to do that, and so that's where most of the challenges are, to engage with the third party or establish a strategy for transferring data. In this case, De Montfort University use EMT system, Dynamat 2050, which is a proprietary system that holds their data, and it's the first one that we supported. And so all that they have to do is create a link to Dynamat 2050 and then configure it with a username and a password and the URL for where we get the data from, and then from then on the data comes through. So so the energy manager at DMU has this interface, which is actually a direct link to the Dynamat server. So these are the data sets that the server is exposing to us, and by turning these on with the toggle switch, he's instructing our system to regularly download data from that data set and import it into the system. So this is the most convenient way. Less convenient, and for some reason it's loading and loading and loading, but there must be a long list of files which have been uploaded. Maybe I'll try at Nuremberg. So in this interface, a couple of files are uploaded into the system, and they've been imported, and actually these ones are going to be deleted because they're part of the automated system. So also in Nuremberg, we use the pull system, and we have a link to their Interwatt system, which is also, there we go. So they have a link to Interwatt, and this system is automatically pulling data all the time, creating these files and then importing them, and then they get deleted. So, but if you didn't have that, then you would go through here, you would find your format. I know in Nottinghamshire Healthcare, we use this file format, generic data row format, which they extract from Systems Link. And so you just drag and drop your files here, and they'll be uploaded. And from that process, devices will be generated. And that's the basic building block. So once you have devices, then you can create virtual meters and construct them in the Components tab. You can drag from your list of devices, you can drag into, if you have a very long name, then the interface cracks a little bit. But you can drag your interface, devices into virtual meters. You can set whether they have a multiplier which is different from 1. So you could put a -1 in there if you want to delete a meter from a virtual meter, or you can put a 0.5 if you want to divide one device across 2 virtual meters. So there's many ways you can construct your dashboard. So I think that's all I have to say about the dashboard, unless there's any questions.
No need to be shy. You can simply ask questions, raise your hand. If not here, then maybe you show the forum, and we invite also everybody to create an account in the forum, and you can ask questions there. Obviously, there are already topics going on which you might be interested in more detail, but you can also start any conversation, and yeah, it will be continued.
Yep. So, I mean, the forum is a great way to interact with us. If you are new to the project, then please do come and register on the forum. It will allow us to engage with you directly. I hope Isfan doesn't mind that if I show the interaction that we've had recently. So in setting things up, we've had an engagement where we're just getting the data sorted, and you know, we can put screenshots up and show you what to do, and show you, and you can post your questions and your problems, and we'll get you up and running. So you know, this is kind of our initial task, to get up and running, and then we can move on to talking about how you intend to, or how you are finding using the system, and how we can adapt it to your needs. We really try to remain flexible and meet the real needs that you have. So the forum is a great way to interact with us and with each other.
Yeah, in general, the forum is not a forum, as you might know from old times, where everything is threaded, and it takes ages to find what you need. I mean, you've already seen that you can scroll through time, basically. You are also notified if you get any, if you're being addressed by name, or if a response appeared to you, to one of your questions, not necessarily by email, but on the board itself. And yeah.
So there's a few really key posts which explain a bit more detail. We have an introduction to the dashboard, which you can review, which gives a bit of an overview of the features of the dashboard. We also have instructions about how to get data into the system. So some description about that, including a very highly technical description for your IT people to actually do the automated upload, including all full instructions all the way about how to do that. So, and we're happy to engage with IT people directly as necessary. There's also a description somewhere here about how do the smiley faces get calculated. So I don't know whether that's of interest, but this is fairly getting into more technical detail. You can play with a little thing that lets you look at the smiley faces, which I find quite entertaining. So here we have you know, a deeper dig into the methodology underneath these zones, how they're calculated, how we establish the ranges which are considered to be expected consumption. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, then please come and have a look. It's all publicly available, but we would encourage you to register and engage.
Yeah, this is not only.
So, okay. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, then I will take over the screen. I hope the right one is being shared now. I didn't check. Yes. So you've seen the dashboard, you've seen the forum, the website, the materials. You've seen them where they are and their help support, but also on the website. If you find it easier to in a much more condensed form, then you can see the list of what is available. Basically, you can dig in at any point in time where you think you will encounter problems, whether it's during the setup, whether it's convince people of to use dashboard. You might be not the person who can decide for the authority on getting into it. Look at the presentations we provide you. You can easily adapt them. They're in a free form, editable format, not free format, editable format, free for you to use. So not PDF, but PowerPoint, and they come from different angles, be it focusing on efficiency, focusing on information, on engagement, the setup, the technical stuff. So you can satisfy the technical people without having to explain every detail by yourself. Simply give them the document and point them at the topic in the forum where they can approach those who are the experts. And you can have a bilateral discussion, not having to flow through you. How to get people engaged. There's a repository of many different steps. If you've never undertaken such an endeavor, this has been successfully used in 11 cities for smart spaces, and now again in many cities in EDI-Net. So you're not starting from scratch and have to develop everything by yourself. And again, for coaching, is always good to start not only a technical item, a technical tool, but people should be able to use it to do something with it. And yeah, you can activate people with quizzes, which you can embed in your website. You can give the energy professionals or energy responsible, that might not be a janitor, is not necessarily an energy professional, but he's highly aware of the building, a checklist of what he can do, and so on. And if you create any input, yeah, you're welcome to take it on and share it with all other cities. And if you have feedback, again, tell us and we will update the files. This is work in progress and living documents. That's for the materials. And the benchmark tool is very abstract, so it's hard to explain in a tutorial without using your own buildings. But you've seen already the general list. What is the overview? Then there's a general analysis, basically aggregated information about your entire consumption. Here, again, you need to be aware of what's happening in your location to find these graphics immediately informative. But if you know that temperature has remained equal over the past few months, which you're most likely aware of, and then there is a sudden peak, then or there are peaks, then you can see trends. You can identify where something needs to be taken care of on a broad basis. But obviously, hopefully, with more people engaged in the buildings, also on the dashboard, where people can see immediately on a daily basis that smileys turn red and something can be identified. Sometimes there's a short-term explanation, but often it is systematic, as we've already observed in this tutorial. And again, record, simply use this not only to see data, but also to record what measures you have undertaken. This is often separated, a big mistake, because you don't know about the efficiency of your measures, and it is easier to justify further measures if you can show proof that success has been achieved in the past, and yeah, the city as such or the authority as such is getting more efficient. With this, I propose I would end, maybe describe a few more steps or opportunities for you, unless you have questions. So this first, and then what might be the next step for you in the future. If you have any questions, please go ahead. Okay, everybody's shy today. That's fine. In EDI-Net, we have training workshops, so live sessions where you can work with people. The next one will be in Nuremberg in June, and you could attend at this workshop. You can engage in further webinars, which will dig into particular topics. You can obviously utilize the material as much as you want and engage in the forum if you wish to. Ask questions aside from this webinar. And after this tutorial tomorrow, we will share the link for the video. And with the link, we will also share a survey where you can give feedback on the tutorial, first of all, but also if you want to take further steps, if you want to engage, if you are engaging someone. We understand that this is not a simple task, and we cannot expect an answer yes and no. Sometimes people need to be convinced, but it is helpful for us to know whether you're engaging, and we might be able to support you in the proceedings if we are aware of what's happening. In any case, if you tell us this, we will provide you with a selection of material, because right now I know we have bombarded you with a lot of stuff and you don't know what is most important for you. If you tell us that you are to engage with the decision makers, if you're interested in participating, we would provide you with small selections which guide you through the steps into getting EDI-Net to getting committed to EDI-Net and then to setting it up. The 4 steps for this you have seen. The administrative part, obviously we can't show here, but again, let us know, and we, the Climate Alliance Network, and everybody at the EDI-Net Consortium is happy to help. So I would like to thank Graham for explaining the dashboard in so great detail. I wouldn't be able to, and to you, the participants, and likely listeners after the tutorial, and have a good day, and hopefully we can improve energy efficiency together using smart metering data, which is so far not as it has been promised. The successes here are limited, and here is a simple tool for no money at all, which you can use to actually make it happen. Thanks a lot, and have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.